Life of Wabaunsee, the warrior chief of the Potawatomi, as written by Joseph Napoleon Bourassa. Chief Wabaunsee never lived in Kansas, but his name is perpetuated here in a county, township, village, and lake. Wabaunsee was born in Anquoe, Indiana in about 1747 and died in 1846. The father of this great man was a brave by the name of Wabaunsee, and his mother was called Majwes. These two persons, by their connection, had 3 children, who were Black Pheasant, an unrecorded name, and Noxus, or Wabaunsee, the youngest. Mukadapucky, alias Black Pheasant, or the elder brother of the subject of our biography, became a very celebrated and distinguished leader of war parties, and Wabaunsee often accompanied him. Wabaunsee was raised in the strictest pure Indian manners and customs by his parents. As his demeanor and appearance promised, much of his anxious parents and no pains were spared in watching the youth's life, examining him very closely in his dreams. He was early trained to the use of the cold bath, that is, swimming or bathing both in winter as well as in summer. This practice is severe but healthy and bracing to the constitution of a man, and deemed by our nation of the same effect as that of fasting. He also practiced fasting while engaged in the chase, and was remarkable, while quite young, for his celebrity and hardihood, soon gaining the applause of being a famous hunter. In person he was tall and straight, being 6 feet and an inch in height. He was rather given to silence, spoke but seldom, though not ill-natured, social than otherwise, rarely associated with young people in their games and plays, but he was one of the foremost in their sham fights of small bows and grass arrows, in which he manifested great coolness, daring, perseverance, and dexterity. He was extremely sober. It would only be on extraordinary occasions that he would be seen enjoying the Machiavellian pleasures. It was soon known that he was brave to desperation by his joining war parties when as yet quite young, though much was said to dissuade and deter him from his design of attending belligerent parties. But neither entreaties nor threatenings would turn him from his purpose. On urging the matter too closely, he would only answer, "I am as much of a man as those who are going," and that was bringing everything to a close, and parents and friends could hope for no more satisfaction. It was with colleagued powers of the Chippewas, Odawas, and Potawatomis, Sac and Foxes, Kickapoos, Delawares, Shawnees, Menominees, several other tribes, he was first initiated into the ranks of the braves. The above general march against the Peorias, Wees, and Pankashaws, who then were very numerous and powerful in arms, who had been guilty of national heinous and atrocious crimes and offenses, the above league, in which our hero is included, after long consultation and mature deliberations, decided to extinguish from the face of the earth these sinning tribes, to put out their fire, which means to exterminate the whole tribe or tribes. At the time of the council, having appointed the place of rendezvous, all met at the day and place, and immediately marched against the said doomed tribes, and surrounded their towns and villages, and massacred without any regard to sex or age. The catastrophe of these guilty tribes was unaccountable and shocking, and in a short time the infuriated warrior could hardly find whereon to vent his unsatiated war club, for like all fallen braves before a wind-carried fire, were this people disappearing before the unerring blow of the savage war axe. Seeing no alternative, they begged quarter, and prayed to be spewed or vomited barely for the purpose of handing down their once great name or ancient greatness to coming generations. The savage arm rested, and a voice echoed they were spared. As Pagoshug, one of the chiefs, observed, not long since, saying, "Look at them," talking of the Peorias, "now they are but a handful, when once the earth appeared too small for them, but by their pride, folly, and crime, they have destroyed themselves. Hence from that crisis they will be called themselves our little brothers." In this massacre, Noxus showed himself a very active warrior and daring brave. Our hero marched against the Osages 3 times, always bringing scalps and prisoners. On one expedition he captured 40 Osage prisoners. Black Pheasant marched from Anquoe, Indiana, against the Osages, then residing on the west of Missouri, as leader of the war party, in which Noxus was one of the first enlisted, for now the Osages had become the common enemy, for like offense of the Peorias, and they moved from the east side of the Mississippi to the western banks of the Missouri, eventually villaged themselves on the tributaries of the latter river, now called by Big and Little Osages. named after the tribes, which were then divided into two great parties or band, which is still the case to this day. From this time Noxus outdared his brother, Black Pheasant, and in fact all that were in the party, in which were two great braves, Shabana and Pago Shug. Soon after this unparalleled transaction or feat of bravery, he began as a leader of war parties himself. It is at this time that he entered a fort by the porthole in the dead of night. His brother was the leader, and after a war council, they were about to return home in despair, they having so agreed but one man, and Noxus was the man, and demurred against the decision. He told them they were braves and their decision was derogatory to the title, and added, "I am the only brave man here. Tonight I will enter the fort," for they said the Osage's retreat or hiding place is inaccessible. This fort was kept by a trader named Pierre Chateau, in which the Osages had taken safe quarter. They were permitted entrance from the fact that it was rumored that some war parties were out from the north. The night came, the drum was heard, and singing and dancing inside the fort. They feared no foe, for they knew the gate was closed and barred. Each man of the party looked sad and disappointed, as they saw no hopes of returning home after such a long rout with laurels of honor, scalps, and prisoners. About 10 o'clock, the silence was broken by our warrior jumping upon his feet. He said, "Lee," an exclamation meaning now. "I will get a scalp or an Osage." His brother and others tried to dissuade him, but all in vain. At last his brother told him, "I will go with you." So saying, they left their day retreat or hiding place, Noxus with only his carbine in hand and his tomahawk in his belt, away toward the fort which was nearby. They made still or spirit-like steps, but the night being very dark, it was some time before he could find the porthole, having left his brother, Black Pheasant, about 20 paces from the fort. Our night hero, now at the fort, made up his mind to leave his carbine at the hole, and enter only with his tomahawk on him. It was with some trouble he crawled through. He made for the first cabin, which he thought was a kitchen, for it was pretty well provided with cooking utensils. Here he found a great many Osages sleeping. He lit a torch and looked around. He found what he supposed to be the monster Osage, who was represented as having horns. He made a pass at him, but missed his blow. The next pass was parried off by the horned monster with his buffalo robe, and every time he struck him he bellowed like a buffalo, from which animal he made his people believe he was derived or came. At last he made such a noise that nearly all in the house were awake and crying aloud when they saw their chief and king in his bed, covered with blood. Here our hero was pushed and shoved by his half-awake enemies, until at last he took a scalp and retreated to his porthole, where he narrowly escaped while in the act of creeping out. Some brushed his feet. Our hero was troubled with 2 or 3 ideas when he first entered the house. At first he thought he would steal a boy about 12 years old, but he was afraid he would make a noise and thus prevented his escaping from the fort. It being so dark, it was as much as he could do to find his way out, and so hotly was he pursued that he left his carbine standing on the outside of the porthole. He afterwards went against the Osages, as they were the main enemy, and in this expedition he was successful, bringing as trophies many scalps and several prisoners, and some females and boys, which he and his party distributed among their friends and relatives. He gave these female captives unto marriage to his fellow braves, for he also had one presented to him by the famous warrior and leader Mainpox. He adopted an Osage boy presented him as a son, who I have seen myself, by the name of Wajah, who was married to a Potawatomi woman and had several children by her. Wabaunsee treated this adopted son as tenderly as though he had been his own proper son. He proved successful in every war expedition, but he said he regretted the time he wounded the horned Osage as much as he would have proved unsuccessful in some of his war excursions. This Osage was much spoken of on account of certain bumps or protuberances that grew on his head, resembling those seen on the head of a calf before its horns appear. So he passed himself off for a monster, reminiscent from that family of the animal kingdom. This uncommon man, after this nocturnal affray with our brave, sent him word to come and see him. He would like to make friends with him, to which our hero replied he did not wish to make friendship with the devil. About this time the warrior of this piece began to highly conspicuous in the war. His renown and fame, as it were, spread to the south, west, and north, for as the south he had marched against the Peorias, at the west the Pawnees, Ottawas, Osages, Caws, and the Sioux. So he stood respected and feared by the surrounding tribes, as will be seen hereafter. He headed a party of warriors on White River, Indiana, and in the act of capturing a provision boat, he nearly lost his life. There were braves of several tribes which formed his party: Sacs, Kickapoos, Menominees, Winnebagos, Ottawas, and Potawatomis. After having shot down nearly the whole crew, our hero proposed to jump into the river and make prisoners of the balance and draw the boat to shore. Wabaunsee, warrior chief of the Potawatomi nation. The people will know me and always call me Wabaunsee, signifying the dawn of day or causer of paleness. When I kill an enemy, he turns pale, resembling the first light of day. He was the strongest man in our national councils, according to his biographer, was as a serpent in Indian diplomacy and national affairs in general, and a master judge of human nature.